Hello and welcome back to Unit 2 of Block 1 of MMPC 011 Social Process and Behavioral Issues. Yesterday we had seen the basic concepts of behavioral organizational behavior, and today we are going to see the approaches to organizational behavior. Now, when we say the approaches to organizational behavior, let us first understand the organizational behavior as such. What we can understand by the word organizational behavior is a body of knowledge and people skills which is derived, like we have seen, from the different social sciences, and this body of knowledge and people skills will actually help the managers to understand, to analyze, to predict, and also to control the behaviors of the people. Now, how does a manager understand this? From the various sciences, the social sciences, organizational behavior is enriched, and from this, we get to understand how do we understand the behavior, analyze the behavior, predict and control these behaviors. Now, when it comes to the understanding and analysis, now these are basically the reactive actions. They are reactive because it is like after the behavior is manifested, we try to understand why did the person behave in such a manner, and we also try to find out what caused this individual to behave in certain pattern. It may be individual, it may be a group or an organization altogether as such, and why do they behave in this manner. Now, when it comes to the prediction and control, now when it comes to understanding the nature of the human behavior, what we are trying to find out here is what is that behavior and how is it getting affected. Now, why does the person behave in such a manner is what we learn from the analysis part. Now, we have prediction and control, which are like proactive actions. And prediction is actually telling us what could cause the behavior, and control talks about how do the managers aim to manage the consequences of such behavior. Actually, we are talking about the how of the behavior. How do they manage that behavior? So, what we see here is organizational behavior being a body of knowledge and people skills derived from the social sciences. Besides it, it is also derived from the human resource relations approach. It is also derived from the contingency approach and the open systems approach. When we talk about the human resource approach, we are talking about how does the how does the human resource development, how does the human resource approach is developmental in contributing to the individual, the group, or the organizational development. And when it comes to the contingency approach, this is based on the situational variations involving the actors, the time, and the space dynamics, how a person behaves in different situations, and what should a manager do. If the manager is expecting something beforehand, how should he tackle so that the negative consequences can be mitigated or eliminated altogether with a slight change in the behavior of the individual or the group or the organization. The open systems combines both these approaches in order to check how we can control the behavior. Now, when we say organizational behavior, we are talking about two words. One is organization and the other is behavior. Let us understand this word organization. A certain definitions tell what an organization basically is. Let us go to the first definition. Organization is the pattern of ways in which large number of people, too many to have intimate face-to-face contact with all others, and engaged in a complexity of tasks, relate themselves to each other in the conscious, systematic establishment and accomplishment of mutually agreed purposes. This is basically talking about how different people come together with various roles they play according to the status or say stature they're working. In other words, the hierarchy. So with the hierarchical levels interacting with each other, though it is a huge number, everybody works for a common goal and it needs to be structured. So the first definition is talking about that the organization must be having a certain structure in order to accomplish those mutually agreed upon goals. The second definition goes like this. Organization is the rational coordination of the activities of a number of people for the achievement of common explicit purpose or goal through divisions of labor and function and through a hierarchy of authority and responsibility. Here, it is talking about how they coordinate with each other with their respective goals uh, and the way they get the things done. That is the processes. So the second definition of organization is primarily about the process of the organization. There's one other definition. Let us look into that. Organization is also described as a continuing system of differentiated and coordinated human activities, utilizing, transforming, and welding together a specific set of human material capital, ideational, and natural resources into a unique problem solving whole. Yesterday, we had talked about the open systems and how the resources from the environment come into the system and they are processed and the output is sent back to the environment and the revenue generated helps in recycling or repeating the entire process. Now it works since it is an input process output kind working in an environment, taking feedback from the environment and making whatever controls required. This third definition is primarily talking about the organization as a system. Let's continue with the definition. Engaged in satisfying particular human needs in interaction with other systems of human activities and resources in its environment. So this is talking about system. So when we say an organization, it is basically a combination. We put together the structure, process, and system, which work as a unit. Now, when we say an organization, it is considered as a triangular model with the three vertices as people, structure, and technology. Now, what is this people? Now, the people are, when we say people here, we may at times even consider the individual, or in case of an individual, we may also consider a group, or we can even consider the organization as such. So, individual differences. Now, these three individual differences, whole person and human dignity. All these three are the features of people component. Now, these three indicate that although management generally tries to fit for all, right? That means the institutionalization happens like one organization fits all, or one rule, or one norm, or one policy fits all in tasks. We understand people are different and unique. So individual differences of an organization or a group or an individual, we can refer it as organism, shall be taken into account. in the people concept. When we say whole person, we are combining the personal, psychological, the emotional, spiritual, social, cultural, etc. Like all these aspects of the organism which are needed to be identified and addressed to. Uh, if we refer to the Gestalt theory, it says when we talk about the whole person's aspect, the whole to be greater than the sum of its individual parts. So when we say whole person, the individual altogether with the values, culture, abilities, skills, knowledge are to be considered as a part of this people concept. Human dignity, as defined by Keith Davis, and human dignity is that basic human rights need to be protected in class and also power permeated organizations. People need to be given that respect regardless of the role they play or the hierarchical level they possess. Only then we can consider to get the best out of people. Moving on to the technology, the machines, tools, and methods. Here we can even consider the people skill as part of technology, uh, which determines all the aspects of the organizational structure and function. Now, technology determines all these aspects. It determines the interface between the organic structure, the mechanistic structure, and the processes. It includes ergonomics, that is, the environment in which the man works and to an optimal level. Then we talk about human engineering, where the man and the machine interaction and compatibility is to be considered. Now, these areas need to be addressed under technology of an organization. The third part, which is the structure. Now, organization structure is created by the interface between people and technology, as we can see the two adjacent vertices. It embodies the authority subordinate lateral structure, or what we find is in a horizontal structure, we see different functional verticals. Now, each of these functional group has got certain individuals with certain specified roles, and this is functional distribution or the horizontal classification or categorization of the experts that come to work under the organization. Uh, we also have this authority subordinate vertical structure where we have this line of command and the reporting um, happening. So the hierarchical structure needs to be formalized. And when we say an organization, we need to have a formal structure based on this authority subordinate principles. Now, the authority subordinate vertical structure is based on certain principles, which we can study under the Max Weber bureaucratic principles. It says there should be a chain of command. That means people should know what to do. So they need to get orders or instructions from their superior. There must be a span of control. That means it is the ratio of subordinates to the superior and how many subordinates will be reporting to a superior, or how many subordinates will a superior control. Uh, when we say this authority subordinate structure, authority is institutional and not personal. An individual cannot be personal there. It has to be impersonal so that there is no discrimination. The authority should treat everybody equally. The CEO has the ultimate authority in this framework. That means the CEO will be having both the authority and the responsibility, and he is the person who will take uh, any setbacks onto himself. Authority generates responsibility. So, greater the authority, more the responsibility. Uh, Now, when we increase the authority of a person, obviously the responsibility increases. Uh, the next one, authority can be delegated but not responsibility. A individual manager can delegate authority to the subordinate, but then he cannot delegate the responsibility. Likewise, the CEO cannot uh, give the responsibility, but can only delegate the authority. That means the instructions can be passed, or the orders can be passed from one level to the other, but the responsibility solely has to be the uh, person above in the hierarchy. Authority has a tendency to transgress the limits. It might so happen that a person may not use the authority properly. So, if or authority is actually underutilized, if authority is underutilized, productivity falls. On the other hand, if we look at authority and responsibility, if authority is more than responsibility, then it has chances of being abused. If the authority or responsibility is more than authority, then it cannot be complied, and the person may omit certain duties, doesn't find, or may get stressed out, and the performance gets affected. The efficiency also gets affected over time. Authority flows from top to bottom, um, because the instructions or the decisions are taken at the top and they flow down the hierarchy. Here it also is suggestive that the subordinates do not get an opportunity to participate in the decision making. Now, accountability establishes linkages in terms of subordinates. Compliance to the authority and causing the extent of compliance is a bottom up process. Uh, Whatever work is completed, whatever feedback is to be given, that needs to go bottom up. So, accountability of the resources used and how effective they were, this needs to be, this communication needs to move from bottom to top. The horizontal structure is devised on division of labor and functional specialization. So when we talk about a hierarchy and we have different verticals at the same level, so this is the horizontal structure with division of labor or specialization. So individuals under one certain department or head will have an opportunity to specialize, and this helps in improving the task. And when the tasks improve, efficiency improves, productivity also gets improved. Decentralization and coordination are the forces which sustain this structure. The CEO, when they delegate the authority, they can decentralize and coordinate the forces which sustains the structure, because there is a line of command or chain of command and a span of control. It is possible to get the tasks done. The bureaucratic functions or principles also have certain setbacks. Now let us see the dysfunctions seen in this. Specialization and division of labor increase efficiency and productivity. No wonder this helps individuals to keep on improving on what they do. If required, sometimes they also get additional training to upskill. But when we talk about this kind of a importance given to the division of labor, it might so happen that there are certain uh, verticals who do not get these opportunities, and this is when we have a conflict between specialized unit like the line and staff conflict. Next, functional attributes of hierarchy maintains unity of command, coordinates activities of personnel, reinforces authority, responsibility, and accountability chain, and serves a formal communication. All said and done, this is not as easy in practice. In practice, it has only the downward word emphasis. The upward communication is impeded, and there is no recognition of informal communication. Everything goes in a structured formal communication only. So the feedback sometimes is not entertained in a way. Bureaucracy ideally rests on impersonal conduct, but ideal bureaucracy is not possible. It's never never really exists, as nobody can be impersonal. Being humans, having those values and culture, we certainly tend to have that kind of a compassion towards people. And when it comes to certain situations, uh, this impersonal behavior will be a hard felt truth, and the subordinates will feel that brunt or pressure, and they may not cope up with the situation, and this may lead to further problems. Rules are supposed to be inviolate and non-discriminatory. This is what is desired in the bureaucratic principle, but literally, this is not seen most of the time. Rules have earned that notorious distinction of red tape. Rules basically are more important than goals in this place. But then uh, goals need to be met. So the bureaucratic principle, while focusing on the rules, may at times have to compromise with the goals. Okay. Um, Now we come to these models discussed. So the bureaucracy does not allow the personal growth. Um, it expects conformity and groupthink. It does not take into account the informal organization. These are some of the setbacks. It does not have conflict resolving mechanism as well to resolve any particular role conflict or say line staff conflict. It doesn't have proper solutions, and above all, it is too rigid a structure that it cannot assimilate new technology or changes. Now, the organization environment dependency and the information processing imperatives also expected the organization structure to be more flexible. And for this reason, this kind of a structure is not acceptable. And then we come up with the alternate models wherein we come with a project design model. This is something, or the modern methods, right? So in the modern structures, there are certain things taken care of, but what we see of late in current days is a project design. A project design, basically, the project, we mean it's a time bound, prioritized goals when we say project. So, in a project design, uh, every organization will have such goals which are distinguished from the generic policy objectives and addressed. Now, there could be many projects at a given point of time. And when we say a project design, we are talking about a structure wherein individuals from different verticals or different horizontal levels can form, are formed informal groups and also certain formal groups in order to undertake the project, accomplish the goal, and complete and deliver it. The project staff would emanate from the functional structures and assimilate back into the functional structure after the completion of the project. Now, a project design breaks all those bureaucratic tenets and this breeds great flexibility in the organization structure. and even breaking the line staff dichotomy. The interdisciplinary, the interdependency of the cross-functional expertise requires a lot of flexibility in ideation and execution. Um, the otherwise regular structure has to be moving from department to department will take a lot of time. So when we say project design, the experts from different departments come to form a temporary group which works for a certain designated time period, which is time bound, and complete the goal and get back to their respective functional areas. We also come across a different design called the matrix design. When a project structure is superimposed with the functional structure, uh, what we get is a matrix design. Matrix design is largely laterally spread. It violates the hierarchy and line staff division. It breaks informal groups, which emerge out of the relatively more permanent work groups. Matrix design creates a repository of specialists available in the functional structure. These groups come back every time there is a similar project. Of late, what we are seeing is the free-form organization or a linear structure or the strategic business unit model or the transactional or geographical model of organization structure, which are used by the MNCs. In these, um, usually there are certain activities that are outsourced and like it can be the accounting or the design or manufacturing which will be outsourced, uh, and this outsourcing helps in two ways. One is they get the best of efficiency and expertise, and the other is they can also save on the cost, because they do not have to have the uh, permanent permanent infrastructure, and which is actually looked out by the outsourced agency with whom the organization is in a contract. Uh, it is very cost effective because it also reduces the overheads or administrative overhead costs. Approaches to this study behavior. Now, to understand the behavior of people, there are several models that have been proposed, and we would discuss a few of those models. The initial model, the stimulus response model, which is espoused by the classical conditioning. We all have read about this theory of Ivan Pavlov, who conditions a dog with a bell ringing, and every time the bell rings, the dog is provided with food. Now, this kind of a classical conditioning, which is based on a stimulus, and based on the stimulus, the individual response. Now, this is a caused behavior. Now, how does this happen? If we look into that model, we can see here there is a latent state of mind, and uh, this latent state of mind has to bring a parity between the manifest behavior. How does this happen? Uh, the moment there is a stimulus, there happens a cognition, and when we say cognition, it is an inherent ability to comprehend, to compare, and to cognize um, the stimulus, understand it, and the moment it is understood by the individual, the cognitive ability then organizes and responds to this in a certain or with a certain behavior. Okay, so what happens here is um, there's a parity between the latent state of mind and the manifest behavior. After this, we come to this Sigmund Freud's id, ego, and superego model. Now, id is that impulse struggling for gratification. When we see something or when we expect something to happen, we want that thing to happen. Maybe like when we see a new product, we may have that feeling to buy it, but then we evaluate it, right? So the superego is the unconscious conscience that differentiates the right and wrong, and blocks the impulses of the id. uh, we then judge, is it worth going for it, or should I look for something else? So we decide based on our superego. And the balance that happens, the balancing force between the id and superego is what differentiates the conscience, and that is called the ego. Okay. Now, he believed that the environment offers several experiences or cues which are used to develop the mental image, that is the cognitive maps. Um, Now, Eric Burns' transactional analysis model talks about the parent, child, and the adult egos, and how we consider each other and how do we behave with each other, uh, and what kind of interpersonal relations do we develop through. Now, this is the other model for how people behave with each other. Edward C. Tolman, he talked about the cognitive learning theory, where he talked about uh, how do we understand a situation and how do we bring about that behavior. Now, response stimulus model propounded by the operant conditioning by B.F. Skinner is, instead of the stimulus causing the response, here we see there is a response based on the stimulus. Now, what happens is if we are rewarded, then we show a certain behavior. This is what the operant conditioning is. Now, when Skinner conducted this experiment, he put a rat in a maze and he had put it into such a condition that if the rat turns to the right direction when it comes across a T in the maze, then it gets food. And on the other side, it gets a electric shock. Now, the rat has understood this process. So later, what he does is he puts the rat in a different position. Now he expects that the rat would go by the same, but then the rat is after the food. So it knows where the food is. So it goes straight to the food instead of going in the other direction. Now, this kind of a response stimulus model talks about how the behavior can change. So it defies the earlier model of stimulus response model. There are other models like antecedent behavior consequence model, which is behavior of purposive facets. And also it converges with the behavior that is caused. Now, stimulus organism response model focuses on individual differences characterized by a characteristic of an organism. And also the other models like social learning theory of Albert Bandura, which is a combination of all this. Like behavior can be explained in terms of continuous reciprocal interaction between cognitions, behavior, and environmental determinants. Now, cognition is how the people interpret, how they understand this, and what is the action they show. But this is also affected by the environmental determinants, not just what they are trained. We then come to the systems model, which is a combination of some of the above. The organization have to pursue socially approved objectives. Now, the organization works in an environment, and the environment's impacts on the organization with certain changes that happen or with certain unexpected stimulants that happen. So the in this we see that the formal organization system, which drives the entire structure, is juxtaposed with the individual system and the social system. Um, and the interface between the three, in which the FOS, which is the driver, influence the IS and the SS result into organizational behavior. Now, this organizational behavior is either positive or negative depending upon what they have experienced uh, in their earlier task, and they try to do that. They try to behave in a manner that they get the positive output. So if we put this system model into the framework, we get this: the organizational objectives and resources, when defined, um, these are achieved through the technology that the uh, organization follows, which is put into a certain formal structure wherein the hierarchy and the people in the hierarchy operate with their roles and status and achieve the expected results. And when they get their job satisfaction, they repeat this process. And this is how the organization structure enables the functioning of the individuals, and managers control these behaviors wherever they see the deviations. Okay. We come to the various organizational behavior models. Now, autocratic model, in this we say that the manager has got certain power, and it is based on this power that the manager's orientation is of the authority. That means he works with authority, instructs the subordinates, and the subordinates have to accept the instructions, and they depend on his instructions. The employees in this model are oriented towards obedience and discipline. This is again basically because of the subsistence. People at this level depend totally on the boss and their instructions. They do as per the boss's instruction, and they are not much concerned with the organization goals. Whatever the boss says, they just do it. They are so very dependent. They do not have a say, they do not have a voice to ask. They do it because they get paid. So the employee requirement that is met here is subsistence. They get paid and they work. They look up to the boss instruction and they just abide by those instructions. The performance result is less because they just do as instructed. They do not they are not motivated enough to put their brains into what they are doing. So the major drawbacks of this model are like: people are easily frustrated, they are not motivated, they do the work because they need to earn for the day, they need to survive, right? There is insecurity among these people that anytime they may be thrown out of work, right? Because they are totally dependent upon the superiors. There is a minimum performance because they get minimum wage only. Now, this model is traditional and is based on the economic concepts of man. The organization process is mostly formalized. That means there is a chain of command, and that is how they follow the instructions. Authority is delegated by the right to command. Managers or supervisors bear certain authority and they just instruct people to complete. Basically, what we find here is the employees um, are on the model of McGregor's theory of X model, where the employees have distaste to work, they do not have any motivation, and they avoid responsibility. Therefore, this requires micromanagement. Now, Likud's management system, which is talking about the exploitative, authoritative aspects, says that motivation depends on physical security. Now, these employees are basically dependent on their physiological needs. So, the motivation is what they need for the day. They do not go for riches. They just go for a square meal for the day for themselves and the family. And in this case, the managers uh, go by a reward and punishment system. If the employees complete their task, they get a reward or they get a pay hike, maybe some extra bucks, and they complete it, or maybe sometimes it's just an appreciation. But if they do not do, they are punished. So the only drive for these employees is the reward and punishment. In this model, it is the communication is always one way and it is top down. uh, there is little interaction between the supervisor and the subordinate. With the changing values, what we see is the autocratic model is yielding to other models. But even today, we follow the autocratic model in places where we just require certain uh, operation levels to be done, certain tasks to be done, which are mechanical, which do not require much of ideation. In such cases, we can still have this autocratic model function because things get done. We move on to the next model, that is the custodial model. The employees are able to satisfy their security needs, that is the context of Hertzberg's theory, that is only maintenance factors. Now, in this, the root level is economic resources and the managerial orientation is money. Okay. The employees in this model are oriented towards security and benefits provided to them. What we say is the job security, and there are certain privileges given in this. So, what happens here is employees having got that security, uh, they are not further motivated to uh, take up the responsibility and do the work. They are dependent on the organization. They are no more dependent on their immediate boss or supervisor because they know they have a job, they are secure, and the job is intact, and the organization will take care of them. The employee requirement that is met basically is security. This model is adapted by firms having high resources, as the name suggests, custodial. This approach directs to depend on firm rather than on manager or boss. They give passive cooperation as they are satisfied but no longer strongly encouraged or motivated. Employees are not given any authority to decide what benefits they need. It is the organization which decides what benefits need to be given to which category of people and how much to be given. They do not have a say to demand. Okay. Uh, but this entire custodial model usually works on something called the uh, patrimonial approach. That is, the organization considers these employees like a family member and they take care of the requirements of the employees. Just like a father takes care of a child's requirements, the organization takes care of these employees, and that is how they feel secure. This model is not suited for mature employees or employees who are highly motivated. and they need an opportunity to work and learn, earn, and grow. Now, uh, this model is also widely used even now. Wherever we come across a family run business or a family managed business, what we see is a custodial model working. We move more towards the supportive model. The supportive model, in this, the root level is leadership with a managerial orientation to support. The manager always stands by the subordinate or the other employees, and he supports. In the sense, he allows them to participate in the task they are doing. He discusses with them. So the decisions they take, um, the opinions of the subordinates are also considered. The employee requirement that is met is status and recognition. The moment it is participative, the moment they lend an ear to the employee feels considered, cared, and respected. And this recognition keeps them motivated. So the performance is also improving. The performance result is awakened drives. Now, the individual knows that he is being given some due importance, and the feedback that he always wanted to share, deliver is done. So, here we can see the communication becoming two-way. The model is dependent on leadership's drive. Various organizational processes like communication, leadership, decision making, interaction, controlled influence help the employees fulfill their higher order needs, such as esteem and self actualization. Management job is to assist the employee's job performance. So here, um, the manager facilitates the subordinates and helps them to get the things done. So what we see here is um, kind of a macro management. This model works better with the high level managers or higher level managers because they are already motivated. Uh, they are allowed to ideate and participate in the decision making, and they now have a more purposeful goal to accomplish. So employees feel that sense of participation. um, Organizations with sophisticated technology and professional people prefer this model. Countries which are advanced, countries with rich resources, um, prefer to go by the supportive model, because like we have earlier discussed, individuals are different, and these differences of individuals brings to the flow, the work floor, more brain or more ideation, and there is a possibility of improving tasks and upskilling people, and thereby increasing the productivity and efficiency of the organization. The organization gets to become more successful in the long run. The fourth model is the collegial model. The root level is a partnership with the managerial orientation of teamwork. In the earlier one, we have seen the subordinates given a scope, and they are supported by the manager. Here, what we see is the subordinates gets the feeling of a partner. That means the responsibility is being shared. The employees in this model are oriented towards responsible behavior and self-discipline. It is expected that the employees, while being responsible, are self-disciplined, and they are ready to meet the deadlines. They are ready to upskill themselves. They are ready to take that onus on them. Right. The employee requirement that is met is self-actualization. The intention of these employees when they are participating with the management is to be recognized uh, and to achieve that satisfaction, to acquire that satisfaction of having accomplished something. The performance result is moderate yield. This model is an extension of the supportive model, because here the teamwork approach is adapted. Self-discipline is maintained. Workers feel an obligation to uphold quality standards for the better image of the company. This essence of accept and respect is seen in this case. Um, Employees know that they have to achieve certain targets, and they know how to give the best. And in this collegial model, they are considered at par and they work as a team, uh, and they know that they are equally responsible. Besides this, we also come across the system model. Now, in this, the organization looks at the overall structure and team environment and assumes that individuals have different goals, talents, and abilities. Current day, we see several such companies which are giving a leeway to the employees, giving them enough scope to come up with the best of ideas, and new projects are being taken, because the freedom these individuals get um, is commendable. And the environment, they keep abreast with the environment, and they have a target. They keep a self improvement target as well. Now it aims to balance the goals of the individuals with that of the organization. These employees also get to interact with the environment, and they know like what's happening outside this world, like we see in the contingency model. Here we see individuals coming up um, with the developments. They suggest the improvements. They come up with new product development. They come up with new market development, and these ideas are put in forward in the system model. Individuals obviously want good remuneration, job security, but also want to work in a positive work environment where the organization adds value to the community and to its customers. uh, Individuals having an open say, having an opportunity to speak up and present their peace of mind. Now they get the platform to work. Now, the organizations also provide some incubation centers to such employees who come up with the ideas. A holistic partnership of managers and employees with a common goal, and where everyone feels they have a stake in the organization. Um, like we have seen in the collegial model, they feel themselves to be partners. Here, they take the responsibility and also feel that they have a stake in the organization's performance and achievement, and also the satisfaction. The expectations of the managers are much more than getting the work done by the employees. Besides the goals that they achieve, the managers also expect the employees to come up with newness, new to the world ideas, so that the resources can be exploited. The resources can be used for multiple purposes. The managers have to be more compassionate and caring towards their team, and must be sensitive towards the needs of diverse workforce. They have to devote their attention to creating the feeling of optimism, hope, trustworthiness, courage, self determination, to develop a positive work culture where the employees feel more at ease and work as if they are working for their family. This ultimately develops progressive propinquity and results in the success of the company, because each employee feels that he belongs to this organization, with a limited authority. at his role, status, and level, but the responsibility that the individual employee takes is commendable. Now, Keith Davis' framework of mental model puts a manager in front of this, like uh, the management can consider either of these models, because all these four models, autocratic, custodial, supportive, and collegial, function well depending upon the level of the hierarchy where they are managing. So in the lower level, we prefer an autocratic behavioral model, and in the middle management level, we go for a custodial, and in the higher management level, we go for supportive. Now, taking the right choice in order to uh, get the best out of these employees, the managers try to take these behavioral models into consideration and understand which best suits them. We have in this table seen how the different models benefit the organization at different levels. If you look at the last row, what we see is the moral measure. Now, in the autocratic model, employees try to comply with the instructions and goals that they are assigned with, or the role and the task they are assigned with. But in the custodial model, employees ensure that they get the satisfaction in completing the task. And in the supportive model, we see that the employees are motivated because here they get a certain status and recognition and respect, and they feel more attached to the organization because there is a participative style of management here, and the employee psychological result is basically participation. They are at par with the managers, is the feeling, and they get an opportunity to share their peace of mind. In the collegial model, as I said, the employees take the responsibility and honest over themselves. Now they feel more committed to the task and the team. With this, we come to the end of the day's discussion, and in the next class, we will meet and we will discuss. We will discuss the evolution of organizational behavior. Thank you.